talk about Dave Chappelle. So, Dave Chappelle is out here yet again because I think he has a comedy special that started was it yesterday? I think it was because it said, oh wait, it might be today. I'll get into it in a second when it gives me the actual exact dates. But I think he's doing like this 3-day comedy thing with Netflix. I mean, of course he is. What else are you going to do with Netflix? Has pretty much been keeping him paid for a minute. But of course, now he's still on the whole trans joke thing and making a bunch of damn excuses because I believe he sat down with I think it might have been Variety or whatever. But anyway, let's get into the tape. So the five-time Grammy-winning comedian recently claimed the media has gotten his jokes wrong and not allowed for nuance in his coverage of the backlash to his previous stand-up specials, urging viewers to allow a margin of error. And then he said, people would think it's me versus the gay community. I never looked at it like that, he explained on the In My Opinion, well, they call it IMO, but it's In My Opinion, podcast with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson. It's funny how you talk about the trans thing when there's been so many people running around here saying Michelle Obama is a trans woman, which we know she's not, but I'm just saying. I always thought it was corporate interest and culture negotiating itself. So, most of those people who were critical of what I was doing didn't seem like they were of it. It's like they had their faces pressed against the glass, commenting on what we were doing in there, but they weren't in there doing it. He said every opinion you could think of is represented in a comedy club. Every type of person you can imagine does stand up comedy, trans stand up comics, black, white, Asian, every kind of perspective. And we all champion whatever opinion we champion. We would never think to silence one another. I'm still starting to think he's really not getting it. And it wasn't just people that were pressing their face up against the window on the outside looking in and making comments on things they didn't understand. We all have eyes and ears. A lot of the people that were complaining watch your specials on Netflix and were complaining over the trans jokes. Now, as have always stated, I'm an equal opportunity offender. I say offensive shit on this show in jest. I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm not saying it to be hateful. I also love an offensive joke, but it's got to be set up in a way where it is funny. It's got to be clever. You can't just come out and be like them effing trannies or whatever. Oh, I hate trannies. Or, some of the because I be hearing some of these jokes and and it be homosexual people up in there making them joke, and I be looking at them like, really? And you a whole bald headed dyke up there making that joke, and that's supposed to be funny. Like you could even set it up well enough for me to laugh. You just doing this at the behest of these white folks that live out in because I'm talking about New York because I had to deal with this at one of the stand-up specials. There was a black lesbian that got her ass up on that stage, started making jokes about the trans, and I'm sitting there looking at her like, bitch, you couldn't even set that shit up to be funny. Like you doing this at the behest of a bunch of white people that came in from Long Island, Staten Island, and fucking Connecticut that came over here to come at the garden and hear these jokes, and you thinking you eating when you're not funny. So it's always a way of like how you say it and how you set it up. Because, like I said, I love a funny offensive joke. You got to be clever in the offensiveness behind it. I'm not one of those people like, oh, you can't think the joke, or it always comes from a place with some of these comedians that is like, oh, I'm not gonna let people tell me what I can and cannot say. Freedom of speech, and because things work the way that they worked back then, and realizing that the times is different because of social media and things. We didn't have that back then. When you can be in a comedy club and test out jokes, do all these other things, and people weren't up in arms about it. Also, I'm not trans, so I can't really speak on the community. I mean, I have trans friends, but if they're feeling a way about stuff, they have a right to feel how they feel. And if you want to stand 10 toes down on saying what you want to say and continue to do what you continue to do it. You continue to stand 10 toes down on them trans jokes, but you need to live with the consequence and the things that you put out there and stop getting on these little podcasts and whining and bitching and complaining. Now, if the Obama's supposed to be all about the LGBTQ community, as these Democrats, these corporate centrist Democrats always try to act like they are, I hope that she did there at least was a little pushback or maybe some understanding on maybe you should probably see why people are feeling the way that they feel about a lot of the jokes that you're doing in your comedy specials are always teetering towards being perceived as anti-trans. I mean, maybe that should be the conversation that is also should be had. So the Chappelle Show alum also explained that when performing in a comedy club, those kind of differences are talked through with fellow comedians after the set, but he claimed having his jokes published by media outlets took out the context. Now, he said nothing makes a comedian madder than reading his joke wrong in the paper, and reading a joke is nothing like hearing one or being one. And the intention of a comedy show is a very unique intention. We are playing with whatever the culture is made of, and we break it down and we get it right or we get it wrong. But in all art, if it's going to be good or even hopefully great, you got to have a margin of error. So yeah, he is true with that. But I do agree with, like, sometimes the media does hype things up and they will twist words or they will say things. And a lot of times you can't get nuance from reading an article and being like, this is the joke. And I'm like, that's not funny. But when you watch the special and you hear how they deliver it, and he's setting it up in a way where it's like, oh, I'm getting where you're coming from with that. That's different than somebody just going in and just, I'm gonna say the derogatory thing, like what killed Tony and a lot of that stuff is about. I want to say the derogatory thing because I want to be I'm Mr. Badass, and I'm just gonna go and say the most offensive shit just to see how far I could push the button. But there's been no real setup to being of telling the offensive joke. There's levels when it comes to the comedy. It's like with me, I'm not somebody who is considered a comedian. I say funny shit, and y'all be up in here laughing, but there's different ways of being a comedian and telling the joke and stuff. Sometimes it come naturally. Some people just got to write things down and do whatever they do. Me, I just come off the dome with stuff and just, if it land, it land. If it don't, it don't. We move on. So, but then again, I guess they feel like, just like how I was watching someone, what was it, Killjoy Jake, and he was giving his opinion on the whole Melissa Barrera situation. And he was like, you know what, as a white pasty male, that was his words. He said, I can't, I don't, I'm not, he gave his little opinion, but he said, I shouldn't be speaking on what it's like for a woman of color, because yes, Melissa Barrera is Mexican. Why I can't speak on a woman of color's experience in Hollywood. Same thing with Dave Chappelle. You are a black cis male, heterosexual, I would assume. You can't be speaking on a demographic that you don't know anything about. But maybe a trans comedian could, because once upon a time they were perceived as a cis male before they decided to transition to female. So who knows? It's all about nuance, is what I always try to say. So in regards of, and you know what, Netflix has given him many of specials where he's talked about trans stuff, which would be Sticks and Stones in 2019, The Closer in 2021, The Dreamer in 2023, and Unstoppable in 2025. So you did 4 specials where you talked about trans people. What does that say? Excuse me. So now he performs from oh, so it starts today, May 7th, the 7th to the 9th, at the Hollywood Palladium, as part of Netflix is a Joke Fest. So that's what he's currently going to be doing. And I want to hear from y'all. I want to hear what y'all think about this story, especially like with the trans community. How do y'all feel about what Dave Chappelle's been saying? And he says that, do you feel like that the media is getting his trans jokes wrong? I mean, I don't think you should be so focused on what the media thinks. I think you should probably be trying to understand what the community feels in regards of the jokes, and where, like, in your heart, where are you coming from with these jokes? Is it in jest? Is it because that you got a deep hatred for the trans community? Like, I don't know where your heart lands in regards of, oh, you just feeling like it's just jokes. I'm a comedian, I should be able to tell the jokes that I'm telling, blah blah, you know, that shit they always like to say. So anyway, let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.